I'm the third generation refugee, and I will just tell you how the four generations of my family suffered and have been suffering from the occupation. My grandfather from Jaffa, when he was forcibly expelled by Israel in Nakba, he was 10 year old. He was expelled barefoot to Gaza, leaving all his belongings without him. He was an orphan. When he came here to Gaza, he lived in El Bureij camp in the middle of the strip all his life. And he used to tell us a lot about my origin country, Jaffa, in Israel, or what's called now Israel. In 2010, he was in an interview, in a press interview, and he was in Nakba on the 15th of May, and he was talking about Nakba. Just after minutes after finishing the interview, he passed away. When in Nakba did, he couldn't stand more. He couldn't speak about that, and then he passed away. When in Nakba did on 2010. This is the first generation. The second generation, my uncles. One of my uncles was expelled by Israel to out of Gaza because he was a member of the Communist Party in the 80s. He went to Europe where he studied medicine, and he's still there. And I haven't met him, and none of us has met him since then, except in 2013 during the previous Egyptian president Mohammed Morsi. My uncle managed to come to Gaza for 3 weeks. My dad passed away. My grandmother passed away. My grandfather passed away. My other uncle passed away, and he hasn't. He didn't, and he couldn't see or meet any of them. All of them passed away, and he was far away. And this is the second generation. The third generation, I'm one of the third generation. I've lost my house twice. The first one was during the Israeli war in Gaza in 2008, 2009, and the second time in 2012. During the first war in Gaza, we were sleeping. We built our house, like it took us like 3 or 4 years to build our house. It was so expensive. It was the first years of the besiegement or the blockade on Gaza, and building materials were so expensive. And my mother, she was the only breadwinner, took tens of thousands of debts to build our house, and we moved to our house in October 28, just 2 months before the war. On the first day of the war, it was at maybe 1 a.m. They called our neighbor and warned him to evacuate his house before bombing him. And he was shouting at night, and it was the first time for me. I was 13-year-old. I was a child, and he was shouting like in an insane way to wake up all neighbors. And we just fled just 100 meters maybe away from our house when we heard the Israeli war plan, which is F-16. It's common in Gaza as F-16. When it bombed the house with 3 rockets, we laid down on next to a wall, just 100 meters away from our house, and the rebels and the smoke suffocated us. It was unspeakable. we completed, and then we run like maybe a kilometer to reach our relatives' family to stay there. When we returned back again at 6 or 7 a.m. to see what had happened, we didn't find anything. We just find rubbles. I still remember how my mother fainted when she saw her life savings. And this, we like, when my father passed away, he left his inheritance to us, and my mother bought everything, a lot of all our inheritance and all debts and all her life saving in that house, and it was flatted. And then it took us 2 years to rebuild it. We took the compensation from the UN, I guess, or the government. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly because I was a child. In 2020, in 2012, on the last day of the war, they also bombed the same house, and they flatted again our house. At that time, we didn't, when our house was bombed, we were still in debts from the first house. And it took us again years of displacement, bitter displacement. And when we received the compensation to rebuild our house again, it wasn't enough. And by the way, we have still want $5,000 from the UN, and they haven't uh, paid us, because they say always we are like, there is no funds to you, so yeah, you should like pay to you. And we rebuilt the house again. And this is just a small story about how I, from the third generation, suffered and has been suffering from that. And that experience has left indelible marks on me. The fourth generation, she's my niece. She's just 16 months old. Her name is Yafa. We named her Yafa after our original country, Yafa in Israel. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my mother through a video call, and whenever I call him, whenever I used to call him video, I used to ask him to show me Yafa, to talk to her. And while I was talking to her, I was in a park here. It's Stevens Park. It's a public park. Uh, while I was talking to them, there were massive bombardments without them, and Yafa was shouting and crying, and my mother just hugged her, and they hid it under a table, and it closed the call. At that time, my heart like was beating fast, and I didn't know if they were targeted or not, or if the bombardments were close to them or not. I didn't know, and I couldn't like call them again. While there at that time, a small child, a little like girl, was playing hide and seek with her sister, and she asked me to hide behind a tree, the tree I was sitting. I was sitting under a tree, and the little girl wanted to hide behind it, and she asked me politely if she could hide or not. And of course, I said, "Yeah, you can hide it." And I just was thinking, why should why our children hide from bombardments? Why all people hide? Just hide to play, hide to have fun. And my sister has tens of thousands of children in Gaza. Up to date, 4,000 children have been killed. Why should all generations, all Palestinian generations, suffer from the occupation? Why all the world? Just when it comes, I don't know how the world think, the Western leaders, the Western presidents. I don't know how, like, we are sick of this double standard. We are sick of all this. Like they have been calling for a humanitarian pause, not a ceasefire. At least ceasefire can put an end to this bloodshed or this massive killing, at least like for a few years. No, they want just a humanitarian pause. They want to feed Gazans. They want to give them a little bit of like some hours of electricity, a little bit like a small like water. They wanna give them water, but then they wanna start killing them again. Is this the democracy? Is this the human rights? They claim, they have been claiming, they advocate for. I don't know. It's insane.